Okay, going to try to do a quick video in front of the camera here. This is going to be about the best trilogy in pro wrestling history. So not just WWE, but any promotion. And when I'm thinking about a trilogy, I don't think it has to be 3 consecutive matches. I think you could, as long as those two guys had 3 matches that were all great, I think that could be in contention for greatest trilogy of all time. Even if it's like from 97 to 2010, like Undertaker and Shawn Michaels, like they still had, a trilogy where each and every match was about 5 stars. So I would definitely keep that in mind. But, just going to kind of throw some trilogies off the top of my head, and let me know in the comment section personally, what do you think is the greatest trilogy in the history of pro wrestling? And if it's pretty obvious, I think it's pretty obvious. I think what most people are going to go for is Flair and Steamboat. But if you want to, give a pick about what's the best trilogy in the history of WWE, I think that's probably a little bit more fun to debate. So let me know what your pick for the best trilogy is. But, Ric Flair and Ricky Steamboat, I think that's the obvious one. You got the Chi-Town Rumble from 1989, NWA, WCW at the time. The Clash of Champions from New Orleans, 2 out of 3 falls. That seems like it's the more popular pick now. But when I first dug into the trilogy, it seemed like the Wrestle War match from 1989, where they did the Terry Funk angle. I always thought like that was the best. That's my personal favorite, and it seemed like guys like Triple H and Foley, like that was their pick from the best of the trilogy. Now it seems like the New Orleans match from Clash of Champions, the 2 out of 3 falls, is the favorite. But amazing trilogy. I don't see how you could say anything bad about the Flair and Steamboat stuff. The only people that will bitch about those matches are if they didn't let the match unfold and they just kind of, were criticizing the match within like the first 5 to 10 minutes, like it's too slow. But I don't see how anybody could criticize those matches if you just watch the whole thing. They're just amazing matches. Samoa Joe and CM Punk from Ring of Honor. Obviously, that was monumental to the company. You had the World Title Classic match, which is probably the weakest of the 3. But at the time, Gabe was still promoting it like this is the greatest match in ROH history. Joe versus Punk 2. It did wonders for the company. Meltzer gave it 5 stars from Chicago. And then they had the rematch at All-Star Extravaganza 2, which a lot of people like that as the best because it's shorter and you get a definitive winner. You got the Steamboat stuff, which was great. So that's Joe versus Punk. So staying with Ring of Honor, another great trilogy I would say is, and I'm not just going to keep it to their 2006 stuff, but Bryan Danielson, Nigel McGuinness. I would go from Unified. I would say this. I would say that the best, if you want to just narrow it down to 3, I would say Unified, Driven, and I think I might go with the 6th anniversary show. If you want to pick the best trilogy of Bryan Danielson, Nigel McGuinness matches, that will be it. But there's even other great matches that you can slide in there as well. So anything else from Ring of Honor that really stands out? I would say Briscoes versus Kevin Steen and El Generico. Any of the stuff from 2007 you could put in the one trilogy. I think I would go with Driven, Manhattan Mayhem 2, and then you go with the Man Up ladder match. That's another great trilogy from Ring of Honor. From TNA, I would say this. I would say that AJ Styles, Christopher Daniels, Samoa Joe, the Unbreakable match gets a lot of love, but I think if you look at that trilogy from the Unbreakable match, Against All Odds 2006, and then I'll slide in the Turning Point 2009. That's a fantastic trilogy for TNA. And sticking with TNA, and, most people wouldn't really count this as a trilogy because Psychosis is in the first match. But when you look at AJ, Jerry Lynn, I think it's AJ, Jerry Lynn, and Lowkey, the 3 matches that they had. The first one was with Psychosis, but then if you look at the ladder match and then the non-ladder match, when it was NWA TNA, those 3 matches were great. I think it was, the match that those 3 guys really got TNA off the ground. So that's another great trilogy, if you want to count that, because Psychosis is in the first match, so I know a lot of people wouldn't count it as an actual trilogy. So what else do we have here? From WCW as well, I think you could go with Flair and Sting. I think my pick would be the match from the first Clash of Champions, 1988, the same day as WrestleMania 4. I think there was another Clash of Champions in 94, right? And that will be the last one. And the one in the middle will be the Great American Bash from 1990. So that's Flair and Sting, the trilogy from the late 80s, early 90s. I think that's definitely in contention. From ECW, I think I would say Rob Van Dam and Jerry Lynn. There's only two matches that really get a lot of love, but I think when you look at the first match that they had from the ECW arena, and then what was it? Living Dangerously, 1999, and then obviously Hardcore Heaven, 1999. That gets the most love. So I think that's another great trilogy, from ECW. So let's see, what else do we have? What's another trilogy that I could think of? All right, so I want to think of something from Japan. I think what comes to mind is Misawa versus Kobashi. This is a tough one because the second match is not clear to me. So I would go with the one from Halloween 1998, which was in All Japan. I think there was a rematch in 1999 somewhere. I just can't remember the date. And then they had one in March of 2003 in Pro Wrestling Noah. So yeah, Misawa, Kobashi, legendary trilogy that was started off in All Japan and ended in Noah. Also Okada. Tanahashi and Okada, they had a trilogy at Wrestle Kingdom that was phenomenal. I can't remember the exact years. I just know 2013, 2015 were great matches. And then they might have had another Wrestle Kingdom main event. I can't remember if it was 2014 or 2016. It was one of those years. I just can't remember the year. Then 2017, that's when Omega and Okada started, their work together. So I don't think Omega and Okada was a trilogy. From my recollection, they had the Wrestle Kingdom match and then the match at Dominion. I'm not sure if that was a trilogy, but yeah, so that's some stuff from Japan. There's probably other trilogies that I'm leaving out. I apologize about that, but let's move on to WWE. Yeah, there's a lot of great trilogies. You don't really think... The trilogies that really stand out to me are, the Flair Steamboat one and Joe Punk. There's really not a lot of trilogies that stand out, even though they've had a lot. So I want to start off with Kurt Angle and Chris Benoit. I would say that their trilogy, I would say WrestleMania 17, Unforgiven 2002, and then Royal Rumble 2003. Those are the three matches that I would pick. There's other matches you could slide in to replace WrestleMania 17, either the SmackDown match or the Steel Cage match. But, I love the Angle Benoit stuff. No one really looks at their stuff like a trilogy. In 2001, it was 4 matches, with the 4th one being the cage match. But Undertaker and Shawn Michaels, this is weird because you could go way back to Hell in a Cell from Bad Blood 1997, and then the 2 WrestleMania matches. I think that's a great trilogy. Stone Cold versus The Rock, the WrestleMania trilogy. I think that's easy. 15, 17, 19. Shawn Michaels and Triple H. This is kind of weird. I don't think this gets brought up enough, but I think if you want to put their SummerSlam match, the match that they had on Raw in December 2003, and then I think you would go with their Hell in a Cell. I think that's a really good trilogy. They're not all, classic 5-star matches, but, they're all great matches. So, is there anything else we can think of from WWE that really stands out? So I'm trying to think of Shawn Michaels and Bret. There's really not a lot of trilogies from Bret and Shawn, like in the 90s. Like you can't even say that Shawn and Bret had a trilogy. But I think Shawn Michaels and Chris Jericho is a good trilogy. WrestleMania 19. The match on Raw wasn't that good, but I would say WrestleMania 19, Unforgiven, the unsanctioned match, and then the ladder match on No Mercy. I think that's a really good trilogy. In terms of, some other stuff from the Indies, I think Bryan Danielson and Lowkey was good. The King of the Indies match, that obviously did a lot for, Danielson's career. It was in 2001. I still haven't seen that yet, but I would imagine that it's spectacular. And then you have the Round Robin Challenge and then you have the match at All-Star Weekend 6. So Bryan Danielson and Lowkey was a great trilogy too. So I wouldn't sleep on that. You know, what's a really fun trilogy as well from WWE, I would say the Edge and Christian, the Hardys and the Dudleys, you know, the 2 WrestleMania ladder matches and TLC 2 from SummerSlam. That's an awesome pick for WWE in terms of a great WWE trilogy. You know, I can't say Bret and Owen really is a trilogy. I can't really say that Triple H and Austin, you know, could be classified as a great trilogy. I just can't. I can't. I don't think you can really go there. Angle and Edge. I think Kurt Angle and Edge is a really good one. You know, they had the, Backlash and Judgment Day where they stole the show on both pay-per-views. And then they had the steel cage match on SmackDown when Angle was wearing the wig. That's another awesome match. Rob Van Dam, Eddie Guerrero. Would anyone put that up there? I probably wouldn't. You know, the pay-per-view matches didn't really hit the 4-star level, so I can't really put that in there. I would probably say Randy Orton and Edge had some good stuff, man. I think when you look at Vengeance 2004, you know, any of the matches they had on Raw in 2004, and then you add in the Backlash, the greatest wrestling match ever. That is a really good trilogy. I think Randy Orton and Edge did some great work together. I would say Randy Orton's best opponent, other than Edge, was probably Benoit. You know, they had the match at SummerSlam and the next night on Raw, and they had other really good matches on SmackDown. I don't think you could really classify those as, you know, no one's going to go for those as best trilogy of all time, but you know, in terms of Orton stuff, that will be it. Okay. What about John Cena? You almost forget about John Cena when we're talking about trilogies. I would not go with any of the Randy Orton stuff. The stuff with Edge was all right, but yeah, I would say this. I would say SummerSlam, Unforgiven, 2006, and then you put in their Last Man Standing match. I wouldn't say that's a great trilogy. I don't really like that Last Man Standing match. I mean, I think it's great, but greatest trilogy of all time, I can't go that far. Oh, man. Trying to think who else do we really have that you could really argue is in that realm. So with John Cena, you know, Cena's best opponent in terms of a trilogy, it's got to be CM Punk. It's got to be Punk. So I would go with, Cena and Punk from Money in the Bank, SummerSlam, and then, you know, the match on Raw in 2013 was spectacular. So I think John Cena, CM Punk, I think, you know, that's a trilogy that definitely holds up, where, you know, they had each and every match was pretty much great. I think the SummerSlam match is the weak link there. So, you know, I don't know if people are going to be, you know, cool with that being in contention, but I think Cena and Punk, that comes a lot closer than I think a lot of Cena's other, you know, opponents. John Cena and Shawn Michaels, that's more of a 2-match show than a trilogy. Trying to think, was there really anything else that Shawn had in the 90s that could be classified as that? I don't know, man. I don't think so, man. I really don't know. Oh, Chris Benoit and Chris Jericho. Here we go. All right, so we got Benoit and Jericho. I would go with the their ladder match is the best match, but I would say I'll go Backlash, SummerSlam, Backlash and SummerSlam of 2000, and then the Royal Rumble ladder match from 2001. I think Chris Benoit, Chris Jericho is a great trilogy from the year 2000. Kurt Angle and Eddie Guerrero, I think that's a great trilogy from 2004. WrestleMania 20, SummerSlam, and then they had a 2 out of 3 falls match on SmackDown that was even better than their SummerSlam match. Yeah, the sun's coming out, so that's cool. Trying to think, man, is there any other promotions we left out? So we got WCW, ECW, WWE, ROH. We covered TNA. We talked about some stuff from Japan. I'm not gonna go with. I'm not gonna get into Chikara. I'm not gonna get into that. Dave. What about Davey Richards? Has Davey Richards had any great trilogies? Davey Richards, Eddie Edwards. I mean, Davey and Kenta was pretty much like a. I can't say that's a trilogy. Davey Richards. What about Austin Aries? Did Aries have any great trilogies? You know what, man? How about Austin Aries and Tyler Black? That's a great trilogy. Well, I'm going with Final Battle 2008. Final Battle 2009. No. That's not a good trilogy. That would not be bad. What about Davey and Tyler? That's not a trilogy. Not a trilogy. Man, so I think that's pretty much it from Ring of Honor. I'm trying to think if the Briscoes had anything else I will put in there. No, Briscoes and Young Bucks have had some good stuff. So I think you could go with, Briscoes and Young Bucks. Man. Anything from PWG that could be classified as a trilogy? Not really, I would say. I mean, I'm trying to think if Zack Sabre Jr. had any good. I think the Zack and Roderick stuff, that comes to mind, but there's only really 2 matches I could think of. Yeah, it's tough, man. It's tough to really deliver a great trilogy. Yeah, I mean, it really is. Without it feeling like it's just done to death. Oh, Undertaker and Edge. That would be another good example. And that's an example of, doing too many matches where it's cool at first, but you just get kind of, tired of it, as it goes along. But if you're going to ask me what's the best 3 Undertaker and Edge matches, I think it'd be WrestleMania, yeah, maybe the One Night Stand match. The One Night Stand Backlash, that's a tough one. I like the Backlash match better, but the One Night Stand, that delivered in the main event with the gimmick. So you might have to go with that. Yeah, I mean, I would go with Undertaker and Edge, WrestleMania, One Night Stand, the TLC match, and then SummerSlam and the Hell in a Cell. That's really not a bad trilogy. But that's an example of, there being way too many matches, and they all kind of felt the same, to a certain degree. Kurt Angle, Samoa Joe. I don't think it's a great trilogy. I like the first 2 matches. I just think by the time you get to the 3rd match, the Iron Man match, it was just a little bit overkill. But I would say, if you're going to go with Angle and Joe, I would say Genesis, Turning Point, and then Lockdown. That will be your pick for the the best 3 matches of that trilogy. Yeah, Samoa Joe and Austin Aries. Is that a trilogy? I think it's only 2 matches. No, if you want to go with their TNA stuff, so the trilogy doesn't necessarily have to be all from one promotion. It could trickle down to another promotion, like I think Misawa and Kobashi did. Okay, man. So now that I thought about it, there was a little bit more trilogies that popped into my head. So I just want to give it to you really fast. But I can't believe I forgot it. Kenta and Marufuji. They had a great trilogy in Pro Wrestling Noah. They had a match in 2006. 2008 was the best one. And then Navigation with the Breeze from 2010. So you get, a trifecta of quality Kenta and Marufuji matches in Pro Wrestling Noah. I can't believe I forgot about that one. Chris Benoit and William Regal. That's a great one. You have the Brian Pillman Memorial. Then you have the match from Velocity on SmackDown. I mean, it was a SmackDown taping, but Velocity from July of 2005. I thought that was incredible at the time. Like, for a Velocity, greatest Velocity match of all time. It's like that was like the Sunday Night Heat of SmackDown. And their final match, this was Chris Benoit's return for his last year. It was at No Mercy 2006. William Regal and Chris Benoit. No Mercy 2006. It's a great trilogy. I don't think Regal matched up with anybody better than Benoit. If there's another Regal Benoit match out there that I haven't seen yet, please recommend it to me, because I'd like to check it out. All right, also, easy ones that I forgot. FTR and the Young Bucks, they wrapped up their trilogy at All In. 3rd match on the show. Yeah, I wasn't crazy about that whole trilogy, but it was still great. Briscoes and FTR. How did you forget about that? Ring of Honor. All arguably 5-star matches. That was a great trilogy for Tony Khan and the new Ring of Honor. That's pretty obvious. Eddie Guerrero and Rey Mysterio. This is tricky. I would only go with the WCW match from Halloween Havoc. Then the rest of the stuff I would say from WWE. I would go with Judgment Day 05, the DQ. It's a disqualification, but it was, looking back on it, it was great for the story. And then from SummerSlam, the custody of Dominic, the ladder match, icing on the cake for, you know, the Eddie Guerrero and Rey Mysterio feud. So that's classic. Speaking of Eddie Guerrero, I would go with Eddie and Dean Malenko from ECW. This is a tough one, man, because I can't really remember the names of the shows. I think Hostile City Showdown, the Farewell at the ECW Arena, and whatever match was in an ECW fan cam match. They had tons of like fan cam matches, but put in any of them that weren't, you know, those fan cam matches, and that's definitely another great trilogy as well. Eddie and you know, Rey Mysterio. So those are just a couple of more. Also Triple H and The Rock. You want to put their ladder match and then sprinkle it in with the Backlash and Judgment Day of 2000. You could classify that as a great trilogy as well. But I'll end it right there. My pick for best trilogy in wrestling history, I think it's going to be Flair and Steamboat. If you were to ask me just from WWE, I'm going to go with Angle and Benoit, just as a personal choice. I would go with Kurt Angle and Chris Benoit, WrestleMania 17, Unforgiven 02, Royal Rumble 2003. That will be my WWE pick for best trilogy. So let me know what you guys think, and I'm out. All right.